Um, my name is Anlor Davin, and I am I've been practicing in the Soto Zen tradition for 21 years now. And recently, actually, since the beginning of the pandemic, I started an online meditation group for the primarily autistic community, but it's also, neurodiverse and friends. We just had actually the record this morning. We had 20 people
Yeah.
from all over the world, so that's very nice. And also, oh, one thing I should say about this is that it's free and anybody can join by signing on we have a registration form on our website, which is autsit.net, spelled
Put
AUTSIT.
it in the chat, Anlor.
Maybe so, yes.
Yeah, I will.
And then I'm sure you heard my accent, so I will tell everybody that I was born in France, though I've been living in United States near San Francisco now. But I've been in United States for 33 years now. I have a son who's 29, and I detailed some of my experience. Oh, I was formerly diagnosed autistic 11 years ago, and I actually talk about this in more detail. I wrote a book, and it was published in, oh gosh, I'm sorry, dates and 2016 now. Time goes by. It's called Being Seen, the book, and you can find it on Amazon. So I think that's me in a nutshell. And now I'll ask Danny, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Um, I'm Danny. I met Anlor at her on person on Otsit some years ago, 2017. Um, we're both trained Soto Zen. Um, so we have the common in common that. Um, but I now am a full-time Tibetan Buddhist practitioner. Last night I thought of the term, I'm a full-time monk, like full-time mom, full-time monk. I practice mostly alone, and Zoom has allowed me to connect with other Sangha members of my tradition, whereas when there was no Zoom, I could not attend because my autism is such that I must stay by myself most of the time. I have severe sensory processing problems disorder, and I like my squishies, but people think they're a little weird. However, the mala, which is a lot like squishies, very tactile, that's more socially accepted. And I know being a monk is kind of a strange thing in our society, but it's definitely more accepted than being autistic. And plus, a lot of the motions in Vajra practice are similar to autism. The mudras, my stuff is mostly hands, but the mudras are, it's very autistic-like. And there's rocking, they call it davening in the Jewish faith. But that's not abnormal or autistic, that's spiritual. Um, that's my story. Oh, Anlor's group has been really great. It actually got me to quit judging autistics. I usually don't like them. I don't want to be around them. I don't, but I've been, her group, I actually have made a friend, and I started reevaluating my prejudice towards autistic people. I know it sounds strange, an autistic judging an autistic group, but I'm getting better. That's all.
Thank you. And how about you, Tara?
Yeah, thank you. So he's Jay Tara Chilchifkados. So, hello everyone. My name is Tara Moses. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a director, a playwright, an artistic director, co founder of Groundwater Arts, all the theater things. And I'm calling in from the Muskogee Creek Reservation and also the site of the 1921 burning of Black Wall Street. These lands are also the traditional lands of the Osage and Caddo. In short, Oklahoma is a very complicated place. And so, speaking of complicated, in regards to my own spiritual practice, oh, I guess before we get there, yes, so I am recently, by recently, like August 2020, diagnosed neurodivergent. We're also currently, specifically through ADHD, and we're also currently going through some autism testing right now. So, more information soon. We'll see. Anyway, and so when it comes to my spiritual practice, I practice the same as my Seminole Muskogee ancestors did pre-colonization, and so it's very much rooted in regards to spirit and creator, non-Western, non-Christian. Even though my last name is what it is, but that's on purpose. Anyway, we can get into that a little bit later. Really, that's all I'll share for now. I'll pass it back over.
Well, thank you, Tara. And thank you, Danny. I don't know if I said that. So I find myself in the role of the moderator, whatever that means. So I'll ask the questions, okay, guys? Um, the one question is, where does spirituality exist with mental health? So
Yeah, I'll
who
go
wants to answer? You
first.
want to
Yeah,
answer, Tara? Okay.
yeah. Um, so I mentioned this on an earlier panel, but I can go into more in depth here. So within my specific communities, mental illness, disability is seen as a very colonial thing. Not that they don't exist, but like the whole need to have like qualifiers and like boxes that we put people in and regard people in is very colonial because like from my people's perspective, it is just more ways to create a hierarchy of people of who is valued more over another person, whereas we are all relations. And so when it comes to mental illnesses, and especially like speaking specifically to like neurodivergency, is we take a very um, like holistic approach to the human as all relations. And it's not like, oh, so and so has, like, you know, Danny, what you just mentioned earlier, like, oh, so and so has weird things they keep on their wrists. Nothing is weird. That's just what Danny has. The end. And so like there's not a lot of conversation around like mental health awareness or around like autism or ADHD or OCD or Tourette's, you know, the other neurodivergent disorders and such, because we're like we just regard people as relations and there's like no need for these additional labels, and instead what there's a need of is just taking care of one another in the ways that we need to be taken care of. And so that looks in many different ways. It looks like, oh, so and so needs to leave the room for a little while, that's fine. Oh, so and so speaks really quickly, and so we're going to ask them to repeat themselves if we miss some stuff, and it's going to be totally normal and fine. um, you know, everything to like there's no need to make sure that like places of worship as an example are ADA friendly and compliant because they just already are. We already provide those things, especially for like the number of individuals specifically within my family and community who are disabled, both with like physical disabilities as well as like cognitive and developmental disabilities and everything else in between. um, it's just like there. And so it's really interesting, like thinking this question on like spirituality is that like spirit is within all of us as relations. um yeah, it's just we're just relations. So like I find it really hard sometimes to like think about these categories. I like to call them qualifiers in regards to my person.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly before Danny speak that I think that anybody, whether with, what's called mental health or, anyway, anybody has spirituality is part of a human being too. So anyway, I agree with what you just said. Totally. Hey, Danny.
Wow, that was great, Tara. I was going to bring that up. Um, the, the resistance to these categories, which I've experienced my entire life, being diagnosed when I was 3 and having a rough time with autism the rest of my life, special boarding schools, all sorts of bogus treatments that in the end were not effective or they were harmful. And thanks to my spiritual practice, I'm not bitter about it, but it was intense, it was misguided, and it was because our society is ass backwards. It doesn't have the right view of what I consider. I'm beginning to consider more and more that the autism is actually not an illness in me at all. It is a strong spirituality, and channeled correctly. Um, I was told I wasn't compassionate, and I had no capacity for compassion. And for years, I did things. I tried to kill myself with drinking and mainly drinking, but self-destructive activities. And since starting to practice seriously, I gradually came to where I don't drink. It's been over a year. I stopped around the pandemic and just quit. No programs, no and I don't take any medicine. They had me on all this asthma medicine. It turns out that the herbs that I do now, basically they take care of it much better. I cured myself with herbs, and they just don't. Even Anlor says, "Oh, I'm concerned. Are you taking your meds? You should be taking." Um, I understand that pharmacology is, accepted as is these psychiatrists and other mental health professionals. Now that might be fine for some people, but it didn't work for me. And I have one more thing about mental health and meditation. Um, there's a lot of work being done right now on the danger of mindfulness meditation amongst people who have trauma, and that includes some or more than a few autistics. So it can actually be harmful to practice some meditative techniques until one is taught correctly, and maybe even has a teacher. I had a teacher in the beginning, and that was invaluable. I'm a solo practitioner now, but I had to learn because it can bring up a lot of feelings. People go crazy in long sessions. It's the thing. Go ahead, Anlor.
This makes me think, of the image that I often tell about how, meditation practice, spiritual, actually, any practice is like a storm at time, and I think the storm will pass away, but it's really, so I am taking some medicine, a very small dose, and I find that it really anchors me and it allows me to do better when the storm hits. Well, that's by now they don't hit as often, let's face it. But there was a time in my life where, and things will change. The storm will abate, I think. But I don't want to let go of medicine and either too much, because I don't want to go back to where I was. So
So yeah,
anyway.
I think that's the thing though, is that like, because there are all of these like moral implications assigned to especially autism, is that it eliminates the choices when it comes to treatment, because like
Yeah.
it's so stigmatized if someone's like, oh no, I don't take medicine, or oh no, I don't do like Western medicine anyway. And then like it's like stigmatized to a degree where like people get like forcibly like taken to institutions because they don't want to like take
Oh yeah.
Western like pharmaceuticals, and that's not the end all be all. And I think it all comes down again to that moral implication, especially since we're talking about spirituality here. And like in my youth, I was like raised non-denominational Christian and very much went away from there. Anyway, don't we know? Don't we all? Have we all?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I know that.
because like these like disorders were like treated and regarded as something that needs to be cured, as though
Mhm.
something is imperfect, like being told, oh yes, whenever you know go into heaven you will be cured and normal and your best body and best self. And it's like, well, this is my best body and my best self anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think like those like moral implications really eliminate choices and sovereignty over one's body and what works best for you. Because I think like I think I'm in the middle. Like I have like one prescription that I take that works really well. However, everything else is done with like foods and natural herbs and natural medicines from my community that works really well for me. Anyway, and yet still, when I speak to other folks who are, you know, not with it, they're just like, well, shouldn't you like take like Adderall and this, that, and the other, and da 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 da. And I was like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Fish oil works for my brain. Salmon works for my body. Soybeans work well for my body. Leave me alone. Anyway, but yeah, I think like that's a huge thing, is that moral implication on top
Yeah.
of it and where it comes from.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I just want
it's
to have
so
a,
huge. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
oh, I always have this personal thought, you know, for people who are forced to take medicine basically to calm them down. I mean, I could have been destroyed so easily. I, you know, so anyway, I just, because it destroys people sometimes too much.
You can. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Danny?
I have taken a lot of, I've been on Adderall. I was on Adderall for years, Adderall and everything else, Ativan, the list goes on. It didn't help me. I'm fortunate I survived, because the side effects from these can be quite severe. I'm also fortunate I'm where I am now, and that the herbal and dietary treatments, and I also use essential oils. I know this sounds hippy dippy, but it actually works for me. I put essential oils on that mask. I don't know where it is right now. It fell off. I put on the mask, and so it actually, I don't like to wear it, but if I dab it with a little drop of whatever, I've got all sorts of different herbs treat different or make different moods. And I use them as a science, and as I use food and these herbs as medicine. And it does work for me. And Anlor can attest, I'm happier and better adjusted than I've been since she met me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was.
Yes, that's very true, Danny. And you
Yeah,
have no clue how much better I am than I
yeah,
was. Okay, so
yeah.
this is an endless one. All right, let me get to the second question, which is, where does organized religion get acceptance and inclusion right? Or actually, where does it get it right? Where does it get it wrong, too?
Where does it get? Okay, I wrote this down.
Organized religion, yeah.
Yeah, I think like we just got to be like specific what we mean by organized religion.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
like what I practice isn't that. It doesn't qualify to whatever those like definitions
What is
are.
organ?
Yeah, yeah. So that's question one. What's organized religion? What is it?
Well,
Because like my brain goes to like
San
Christianity.
Francisco Zen Center.
What,
Zen
Danny?
Center too. The Zen is organized. San Francisco Zen Center, the place we were both ordained. I didn't make it there because I didn't fit in with what I called the corporate culture of an organization. It's definitely Zen Buddhism, but it's organized religion. And they didn't have the capacity or the facilities, or well, they had the facilities, but the they didn't deal with me. I had to force them basically to let me finish my 6 months at Tassajara. Fortunately, I'm not bitter at that either. But I learned that though I'm in the Vajrayana tantric tradition now, I won't make the mistake of attempting a monastic life there. I learned my lesson from Zen Center and the other Zen places. I went to a number of them.
So
Um,
I
I
I
learned.
cannot not say something there because I
I
am
know.
into the
Trying to
Zen thing.
defend.
So, and I want to say that, Danny and Tara, sorry, I mispronounced your name. Um, I mean, I don't think it really matters which practice one is in that I find, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me, and I know I've seen it I felt it with my own eyes, that the only people that let me be were those who had many, many, many years of practice. I mean, not just a little bit, when I was really at my worst at times. Okay, I mean, I did spend time at the Zen monasteries that Danny talked about, and I did live also at Green Gulch Zen Monastery for 6 months,
I'm
21
proud of
years
you,
ago.
Anlor.
And, they I had friends, but I also had people who were not my friends. And I want to come to their defense because those people who hurt me, they hurt me. This is thanks to them that I'm here too. So anyway, sorry, I had to
Yes,
interject.
I did find with the individual practitioners, and I also, all my friends now are practitioners. They understand my need to be alone, and I'm able to do that now without society viewing me as deviant. When instead of thinking that I've had some kind of a breakdown because I don't want to talk and don't want to be around people for a week at a time, which I just did. I just got off a week-long retreat this morning, silent. The other Vajra, the practitioners were doing, and it was on Zoom, and I tuned in and out for the discussions, the Dharma talks, and the group practice. I did that for a week, and everyone I know, I warned that I would be not incognito, but away, and I wouldn't be speaking on the phone or on text. And they understood because they are practitioners, and some of these people, I actually have a job with one organization. Um, they don't know I'm autistic. If it comes up, I'll tell them, but so far it hasn't. I've been experimenting with presenting myself in these groups on Zoom as just me. And if one of these slips, sometimes I'm sure it does, you know, so what? They can ask me about it. And sometimes they do. And it's a whole different feeling than when I was younger. And even only a year and a half ago, where my first presentation was, I'm autistic and I can't do it. And literally, that's how I was. And now I have a little bit of pride. And I'm able to say, yeah, but this is only on Zoom. If I go out in public, I do have to wear this vest. It's weighted so that it gives me comfort, soothing. It's a sensory processing thing. It's actually a firefighting vest that I repurposed that some of the club kids are wearing as a style. So I can get away with, it doesn't necessarily look autistic. It looks maybe a little strange, but that helps me to hide the mannerisms, and I can be more subtle in public and let people think what they will. Fuck them, really. It's a whole different attitude I have now than in the past.
So Tara, did you want to say something more about this, about organized religion now? Does it?
Yeah, I mean, the only I'm not here to shit on anyone's religion. So if anyone's tuning in and this applies to you, don't take it personally.
I like that.
Yes. But the concept of organized religion itself comes with an institutional complex. That's
Yes.
where it comes from. I mean, again, I can speak a little bit more to the Christian faith or how I was raised. But we weren't supposed to see these kinds of like mega churches and industrial complex through religion initially. Like that's not what Jesus allegedly said. Allegedly did not. Anyway, and so but that's where I think the threats of safety come in these spaces is how close is like your religious practice to an industrial complex, one that like prioritizes like white supremacy, one that like believes a lot of these like ableism beliefs, such as like these things can be cured, you just need to pray more, blah blah blah, which is not true anyway, or like, oh, something is wrong with this person because you know they are not perfect in the eyes of God, whatever they say. Anyway, is just like where that like the danger lies for people who are like neuroatypical, or like people who are disabled, or like people who are just like outside of that mold of what a perfect human is supposed to be, according to whatever religion form person practices. You know, and again, this is not like specifically to Christianity, but I think to like to any organized religion, is are there these industrial complexes that uphold these pillars of oppression that like disproportionately affect people like us, or no? Yes or no? Anyway, yeah, so that's where I tend to like really like draw the line and like really ask that question for folks tuning in to really think about, like, has your preacher, your leader, your whomever talked about disability as something that's imperfect, right?
That matters. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does. And if they have, then that's not a place I
That's
want to
it.
be,
That's
need to
right.
be, is safe to be.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to say like there's thousands of religions across this globe and that not all are the same. But that's just the key question I tend to ask, thinking about specifically organized religion
Right.
in regards to an institutional complex.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I find, yeah, spiritual. Well, I find that's the mark of spirituality to not go that path, because you're right, that's not even part of the question.
I have
Anyway, and
one
oh,
more short.
yes, Danny.
I found that the organized institutions, like I won't give any names, but the ones I've been to, monasteries, they are not equipped to deal with difference, and because of that, I understand, and I don't have any sour grapes, but nevertheless, I know that I learned how to meditate there, and that was good enough. And also the institutions with names, whatever their name is, they tend to hold to a certain tradition. And if you are outside of that in any way, you are either subtly encouraged to not go there. Like when I was doing Zen, they really didn't want to hear about Vajrayana, the Tibetan Buddhists. A lot of Tibetan Buddhists were Zen first, it turns out, and I'm happy in that one. But I also do Hinduism and Jainism and other things that don't even have a name, and I just don't speak of them. I just do them.
I find spirituality inside, whatever it is for you, yeah, for all of us, okay, to be something that comes from the inside more than out there. Anyway, let's move on to the next question, okay? It says, well, actually, what we're talking about in a way, why is spirituality so important? Such a big question. Why is spirituality so important?
Danny, do you want to jump in, or do you want me to jump in?
All right. Why is it important? I was told by the Christians when I was growing up, my grandparents were evangelicals in the South, that I was possessed, and really it hurt me. It was like, anyway, I had, however, faith in something. I had the spiritual bent even then, and I was able to turn to that faith my entire life to keep from committing suicide. That's it's kept me going. Now that's faith. That to strengthening the spiritual side to the exclusion of all that other stuff. I really am a full-time monk. I don't work. I don't go out much, even before COVID. Spiritual life is my life. And I know that's kind of extreme, but my autism was extreme too. And it had me institutionalized a lot. And I was about to be destroyed by the drugs and the whole thing. I was near death. So this is an extreme alternative, but that's why spirituality is important to me, because it saved my life.
Okay, Tara.
Yeah. Spirituality is important for me because that is a way that I'm able to connect with my ancestors in a very like living way, like having conversations and real connections with folks who've passed, and then their spirits are able to guide mine into what I do. And then like furthermore, in regards to my creative practice, it's a very, very deeply spiritual one, because like I, especially as a playwright, feel as though I'm just like a vessel for what my ancestor spirits want me to write at that moment in time. So like spirituality is important for like those two, like for lots of reasons, but like for those two big ones of like, one, this is how I keep the connection to like my lifeline alive, first and foremost. And then like also secondly, it's like my career at this point. Cannot write the plays I do, cannot direct the way that I do without it. Because even when I'm directing, even if it's not a native play, like we begin in ceremony, just to get everybody in a good place where they can like listen to whatever spirit that they have as we move through a collaborative process. Yeah.
Yeah, we all have this, I think, spirituality in us. That's just life. We may say we're not, but I think human beings are just spiritual beings too. I don't know. Okay, and then another question, the last one. Where do neurodivergent folks thrive? In organized religion? In creating their own? Or both? We touched upon these. Certainly.
Well, I speak for no one else except for myself. And for myself, like I thrive in places where my existence isn't challenged just because I exist, so to say. Yeah, I'm not here to say like what other where like neurotypical people, like neurodivergent people thrive, because like we're all so vastly different. That there are folks who like thrive in organized religions. There are folks who like thrive in like evangelical Christianity. There are folks who thrive as atheists, folks who thrive in every religion on the, on the planet, and so on and so forth. Folks who thrive, who create their own practice, folks who thrive doing both. Anyway, but yes, I can't answer for anyone else except for myself. And like, frankly, I just thrive within my culture and my community, first and foremost. And that's just where I'm going to stay.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you. Tara, boy, I keep saying it, sorry.
I answer to both. Both names work.
What do you think, Danny? Did you want to say something about that?
I'm agreeing with Tara a lot. Uh, when I read that question, the first thing I thought was, I don't know where anyone else gets it right or wrong or thrives, because all I know is me. And as Tara said, there's people who thrive in any situation, including religion. I personally thrive or do better with practice alone. I cannot tolerate being physically near people for long. And I finally accepted that. And I finally got the opportunity to live by myself, and that has been critical for my well-being. So I don't know, and I think that everyone's different, including I really don't like those labels and boxes. I really don't. I was going to come here today and not even explain that I have autism. However, this is an autistic group panel, and for this purpose, I will. But lately, I've been just exploring not having any kind of label on me at all, in a private way, because I label myself too. I've been saddled with the autism expectation since I was 3. So it's a struggle, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I'm with both of you because I have a little bit of both myself. I mean, I do both. I do organized religion, so-called. I mean, I sit with others. I have 4 sanghas, groups of people who practice, but I also sit a lot at home alone. So, I actually think about 80%. And I mean, I sit, meaning, I'm sorry, that means zazen, sitting cross-legged, in front of a wall, that kind of thing, in upright, silent, that kind of stuff. Okay, so I do it in both. So I'm with you guys. We do it our own, it's our own little soup here. I mean, and like everywhere, people are people, okay? I mean, like you said, our people are doing it this way, that way. And so anyway, so that's about it for the questions. Is there anything else we would like to say about the topic of neurodiversity and spirituality? I like the part about autism acceptance. I don't know. I think it's not just in spiritual. I just want to say that because autism acceptance to me is a lot more than just spiritual. And I want to thank very much, Spectrum Theater Ensemble for bringing up this question because I think that, yeah, there's often that less than, um, being thought about autistic or neurodiverse people, and spirituality matters anyway, as I think we are attesting. Thank you very much to Danny and Tara, and I don't know, should I say Teddy or Spectrum Theater Ensemble? I think,
We're going. Boom.
yeah, so we were just talking about sensory matters, and I wanted to say that or in a Zen center where I have my own experience, I really love the lack of sense, over stimuli. I mean, it's all silent and it's all everything is designed to keep that down. The lights are not shining in your eyes. Fragrances are really discouraged. I mean, that makes it possible for me to be there big time. I mean, silent being number one. And I know that Danny, did you want to say something about that too?
The road is a spot for me to be autistic, and nobody knows because it hides the squishies. And also, the mala is a socially acceptable, at least in the religious community, or most people, if they see you with this, which is basically the rosary that the Catholics stole, and the Buddhists stole it from the Hindus, and the Hindus stole it from the earth or from wherever. Anyway, so with these tools, I can manage my severe sensory processing issues, and it helps me to be able to appear more normal. And I'm not going to call it neurotypical because I don't believe in those words. You know what I mean when I say normal. And I feel normal when I'm meditating or practicing. And these days I'm practicing constantly, even now.